Welcome back. With the variants, vaccinations, and provincial reopenings in the news, we thought it was a good time to check in with two infectious disease specialists. Dr. Suman Chakrabarti joins us from Mississauga, Ontario, and Dr. Lenora Saxinger is in Edmonton. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks. Good to be here.
As we heard earlier in the show, some in Ontario are expressing concerns about the Delta variant of COVID. That's the one first detected in India. So, Dr. Chakrabarti, how do you think that will or should figure into Ontario's reopening plans?
I think it's a factor for us to think about, obviously. This is something that's new and emerging, and we should pay attention to it. That said, I think that we have to remember in Ontario and Canada as a whole, we're in a fundamentally different position, having now, somewhere close to 70% vaccination across the country. This is very different than when the Alpha variant, the B.1.1.7, was here a couple of months ago. So I do think that we need to be cautious, but at the same time, remember that it's a very, very different situation. And I think overall, I don't think it's going to be as big of an impact, but it's important to watch out for it.
Dr. Saxinger, reopening is happening at different paces across Canada. Alberta is ahead of where Ontario is right now. Is it possible that we'll see another spike and have to slow things down again?
Of course it's possible. I think that it's an open question because we also have seen increasing Delta variant. We also have seen pretty good vaccine uptake across large parts of the province, which should be protective. And we also have the good weather, which we think might modulate the transmission a little bit. And so monitoring closely is going to be very important. And I think other jurisdictions might be watching what's happening here to see if we're going to start to have more problems, honestly.
Dr. Chakrabarti, what do we know about the vaccines that have been approved in Canada and their protection against the Delta variant?
So looking at the vaccines, the main ones, that we look at here, the mRNA ones and also AstraZeneca, they do have good efficacy after 2 doses of vaccine. It's somewhere in the close to 90% in terms of overall efficacy. There is a concern about AstraZeneca with 1 dose, citing something like 33% efficacy. One thing I do want to point out, though, while that does seem quite low, on a population level, that could actually make quite a big difference. And also, we don't have the data yet about whether this is severe disease or not. And the thought is that it's actually quite a bit more effective against severe disease and hospitalization. Either way, I think it's important that vaccines help, and we do need to continue to get people vaccinated, but it's going to protect us whether you have 1 or 2 doses.
Not that I'm seeking a second opinion, but Dr. Saxinger, why don't you weigh in on the sort of link between the vaccines we have in Canada and the variants?
Well, I think that the emergence of the Delta variant especially makes us really focus in on the dose 2 part of our push. So dose 1 push has been the focus. I think this brings dose 2 necessity as a major highlight again. I think a lot of places are looking at accelerating dose 2 rollout as much as possible and really trying to make sure people come back for that. It also might figure into the second dose decisions of people who've received AstraZeneca for a first dose. So there might be more interest, I think, in getting an mRNA vaccine for a second dose, just because it might offer a better antibody level against that, although those data are still evolving as well. So people are having to make a decision in a situation where the information is still coming in.
Yeah, this is really challenging. In BC on Thursday, Dr. Henry, the provincial health officer, gave us all, I guess, a briefing on the fact that we could mix and match between the 2 doses. And a lot of people were emailing me saying, where does that leave us? What should we do? So, Dr. Chakrabarti, pick up on what Dr. Saxinger said in terms of mixing and matching. What have you read on that?
Yeah, it looks like the evidence for this, and it's not all that surprising that it probably does work. And in fact, there's a suggestion that you might even get some higher antibody levels mixing in data that's coming out of Spain and also something coming out of Germany as well. Overall, I think we do have a precedent for this with other vaccines. For example, the pneumococcus vaccine, that we put 2 different vaccines together and they give an extra boost compared to if you use the 2 of the same one. Either way, immunologically, it makes sense. It could make sense clinically as well. And I think now we have another option for us to do this for people in Canada.
And Dr. Saxinger, let's finish with the same topic we started with. That is the Delta variant and the concerns that some people are raising, particularly in Ontario. And as you have a few times during this pandemic, you kind of look to the UK for, if not guidance, at least a sign of what might be ahead.
That's right. I mean, they had the B.1.1.7 variant become dominant before it became dominant here. They have actually used the same dosing schedule that we have with the delayed second dose to try to extend protection more broadly in that context. And now they're seeing actually a surge with the Delta variant becoming dominant in the UK, but they're not necessarily seeing the same surge in hospitalizations. And so I think a lot of us are really watching what happens there, because although there's no crystal ball, that's the most relevant place for us to look at, and they really do provide excellent data. So it's very much appreciated.
Dr. Saxinger, Dr. Chakrabarty, always nice having you on the program.
Thanks.
Good to be here.